In this video, I'm going to give you my honest opinion of Horizon Zero Dawn. Subscribe to the Linus Wilson channel where we give you the secrets to crush Horizon Forbidden West. Alright, in anticipation of the launch of Horizon Forbidden West, I finally got around to playing Horizon Zero Dawn in 2022. And it's a game that holds up really well compared to modern games. And really, if you look at the weak year that we had in 2021, with basically not any good new RPGs, story-driven RPGs coming out in that year, Horizon Zero Dawn was probably one of the best choices I could have made to start playing in 2021. But I finished the full story, and I'm going to give you my honest review about whether I think you should play it. So I'm going to break up my review into 4 categories: story, gameplay, inventory, crafting, and art. And I think I'll just put out art right out the front. The art of the game is just beautiful. Like I said, it holds up very well compared to modern games, recent releases such as Valhalla and Cyberpunk 2077. And that's obviously an A in terms of just what a beautiful game with beautifully crafted characters and a beautifully crafted world. So there's really little to nitpick about the art. Then I want to talk about the gameplay. So I think gameplay is something that is really attractive to people that Horizon Zero Dawn stands out in. And I enjoyed the gameplay from the very start. You know, I was trying to decide, do I want to play Horizon? Do I want to play God of War? And I really liked Horizon's gameplay better just from the early rounds than God of War. I tend to like the kind of the bow focused gameplay. I did a lot of bow builds when I played Ghost of Tsushima, and I used the bow a lot quite in Valhalla so I was pretty comfortable with that. The criticisms I would say of the gameplay is that there's a lot of weapons, and I think that's great that they have a lot of weapons, but I think that the way that weapons were introduced in Ghost of Tsushima should be the industry standard from now on. That the reason why people love the gameplay in Ghost of Tsushima is because all the new weapon types, except for maybe one, the blowgun, was introduced in main quests. So you had to learn how to use those weapons in main quests. Whereas with Horizon, you can just kind of pick up weapons willy-nilly. They do have tutorial quests for them, but early on they seemed to be bugged for me, and I didn't really get into them, and I just kept on with the main quest. And so it's very easy to get through Horizon Zero Dawn through the main quests and not use many weapons. You know, I used primarily the bows. The fire bow I found got me through most situations, but it was unfortunate because I think they had a lot of interesting weapon types, and with the exception of one time I spent a lot of time with one of these hunting grounds, and I got to learn about these different weapon types, which I subsequently didn't use. I just think it was sad that those weapons were not integrated more into the game so that everybody gets to find their own personal playing style instead of kind of falling back on a kind of a bow, which I think is the default, because I think that's kind of what you start out with. So the other issue with gameplay for me was I really liked the monster types, the different robot types, which are kind of like big monsters. I thought that was really cool. And so you had a lot of different enemy types, so that made the gameplay more interesting. You know, my take on the gameplay was that she had no stamina bar, Aloy, the protagonist, and so you could roll and roll and roll to try to keep your distance, although that was often hard because they're quite fast enemies. But that wasn't an issue. That was okay. I thought that was enjoyable. I think Ghost of Tsushima had no stamina bar either. Games like The Witcher 3 and Assassin's Creed Valhalla do have a stamina bar, and you know that keeps you from spamming the roll button, etc. But the more troubling thing kind of goes into the third category of inventory crafting, but it was integral to the gameplay. So you would kill a bunch of monsters. You run into a bunch of monsters, and the the robots. The robots respawn, right? And so it's hard to go around the map without running into a fight. And while you could run away from it, it's a little hard in Horizon Zero Dawn because they're so tightly packed. But you could. And at the end of that fight, then the monster or the robots are going to drop a bunch of parts, crafting materials, etc. that you want to pick up. And that means you have to fool with your crafting menu like constantly throughout the game, and that was a real drag. And that really takes me to... So overall, I'd say the gameplay was a B+. It was not perfect. In terms of the inventory... And I would say, just before I get to inventory crafting, the parkour seemed pretty basic to me, that there wasn't a lot to it. And basically, parkour was the number one reason why Aloy would die from a fall for me. So overall, gameplay was a B+, not perfect. It was drugged down by the fact that we had kind of limited weapons, that we ended up having to fool with our inventory menu right after a fight all the time, and that just got tiresome to a certain extent. But it was still pretty good. But the inventory crafting system was really awful. So it was really a Witcher 1 crafting system, so the 2011 game that nobody plays, that you had slots, and the slots held about 5 things, or sometimes they'd hold 100. It depends on the item, but they would fill up. And there was a limited number of those slots, and I don't think they correctly match the number of slots there were to the amount of different types of inventory. So I kept on trying to keep these rare pieces of inventory, right? These blue items, these like hearts of a strider or the hearts of a long leg, different types of machines, and I want to keep all this stuff because you never know when this will be a form of currency or a crafting material. Primarily it's a form of currency. You didn't really craft any outfits, you just put modifications on outfits in crafting. But these rare items would be like a currency item, so you would buy a weapon from a shop and you would need some sort of heart from a rare machine, and you don't want to sell those or disassemble those, so you could I didn't bother to sell most of the things because my inventory would fill up so much that I'd have to disassemble things, and it was just time consuming and just a drudgery to be constantly disassembling things or dropping things, but also the not knowing when you're going to need something, because these items which took up inventory space, even if you just have one of these like Strider hearts, right, a machine heart, then that's going to take up a whole slot, right? And so obviously you don't want to have 6 of those because that would take 2 slots, whereas 5 would take 1. But it's also like, am I going to ever need this except for shards? Which metal shards are the coin? And I never really figured that out. That what should I save and what should go? I think I used a lot of Blaze, so Blaze was something that I might end up buying because I used a lot of fire arrows, but besides that, there's a lot of things that you don't use to craft ammo, and those things that you do not use to craft ammo, while they did have guides to do it, the guides I don't think were totally correct, because they would say some of these machine hearts were good for trading with merchants. But that's technically true, but there was trading for merchants for rare items like armor sets or high-level weapons. So it wasn't that there was just trading for shards, it was that these were essentially crafting items. And so because of this uncertainty about what was important to keep and what was important to what you could get away with dumping, it would made the inventory process more stressful, and I was constantly getting to the inventory limits and disassembling items, which was just not fun, not a good gameplay loop. So I would say the inventory crafting system was a C+. And then, the real strength besides the art of Horizon Zero Dawn is its story, right? So the good things about this story, and this is a spoiler-free review, so I'm not going to tell you any story spoilers, that Horizon Zero Dawn's main story had a lot of layers, so it was like peeling back the onion. It was very interesting, and it kept you guessing. And if you take the time to read the little purple logs, or if you take the time to listen to the audio logs, I think that's kind of interesting. Obviously that takes a bit more time to do that, but it fit within the world that Aloy and Horizon Zero Dawn was in, that it made sense for her to be reading things instead of hearing things or talking to people a lot of times. Now, she does talk to a lot of people, and the cutscenes were quite good, and the acting of the cutscenes was very good. So the art in the cutscenes and the acting. The only thing that I would say is the dialogue choices. While she always did get 3 dialogue choices, there was like a heart, a brain, and like a fist version of the dialogue choice. I don't think they made any difference in the story. So I don't think there was, in any sense, there was a branching narrative in this story. The story was more or less linear. Yes, you could do quests out of order, but if you did a quest, I don't believe that affected anything within the game. I couldn't. It didn't seem to me. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe at the very end, it might have been the case that had you done some side quests and errands for certain people, those certain people would show up at the end game boss fight. But I don't think that they affected it any, but you would at least get them in a cutscene. So that might have been about it in terms of how things affected things. But it wasn't like, you would save someone's life and that would have ramifications for the rest of the story, or you would go down a path and you couldn't go down another path. There was none of the kind of CD Projekt Red choice that you would see in The Witcher 3 or in Cyberpunk 2077. So choice didn't seem to matter. You had objectives. You fulfilled those objectives. You got to the end of the quest, and that was basically it. So that's the only reason I'm not giving them an A. It's an A- for story. So I thought the story was really good. It was really well written. There was a lot of humanity in what they wrote. And so I thought it was better than most RPGs you're going to see. So overall, I'd give Horizon Zero Dawn a B+ or an 8 out of 10 in my rating. Let me know what you liked about Horizon Zero Dawn and what you thought about it. And are you going to buy Horizon Forbidden West, which is supposed to launch in February 18th, 2022, knock on wood, if it's not delayed. Subscribe to the Linus Wilson channel, where we give you the secrets to crush Horizon Forbidden West.